Good day, my students. This is another round of our lecture on Geography 437, Ecology of Natural Resources. Today's topic is on global environmental problems. We can regard it as environmental degradation or environmental deterioration. That could mean as well depletion of resources, both natural and human resources of the environment. This environmental degradation we are talking about is assumed to be a global problem, and we consider it as global environmental problems. They are manifold. There are many. Numerous environmental problems afflict nations of the world, particularly the tropical regions of the world, including Nigeria. These environmental problems could mean environmental degradation, as we said, or environmental deterioration. That is when the environment is not capable of sustaining the livelihood of persons or its inhabitants. All components of the earth are victims of these environmental problems or environmental degradation. They include the vegetation, the forest, both plants, the macro plants and the micro plants. Both are natural and artificial in terms of existence because some are cultivated, whereas some are naturally occurring in regions. They also include agricultural plants, the wildlife species, and domesticated animals. Water is a component of the environment which is affected by this phenomenon. Whether it is fresh water or salty waters, they are victims. The air is a victim, the soil is a victim, and many more of the environmental resources. The environmental degradation we are talking about refers to the deterioration of the environment through the depletion of the resources of the environment, such as the air, water, and soil, the destruction of the ecosystem, the habitats of plants and animals, the extinction of wildlife species, as well as pollution. It can be defined as the reduction in the capacity of the environment to meet social and ecological objectives and the needs of society. One time, the United Nations International Strategy for Disaster Reduction explained that in many ways the natural ecosystem or the natural habitats are destroyed, they are depleted, the environment is degraded due to the pressure exerted on them by humans. Therefore, any change or disturbance done to the ecosystem is seen to be deleterious and undesirable. Efforts to counter this problem, as studies have shown, include environmental protection in a number of ways, resources reservation, resources conservation, and sustainable resource management. Yes, global environmental problems are always interrelated. For several times, solution to one problem actually creates another problem. That is to say that in our effort to control the disastrous environment, we tend to create room for another problem. For example, when we try to control erosion, we try to barricade or to remove materials from the course of rivers or streams, and possibly to divert or to create another pathway for which water can flow. In the course of doing this, we tamper with the ecosystem. We destroy the soil. We tamper with the soil. The soil structure is altered. The nutrient content of the soil are destabilized. To some extent, these nutrients are lost from the soil. So we are creating another round of environmental problem in an attempt to solve these environmental problems in the society. It is natural to want to improve human health. That is real. We want to improve human health. We want to create an enabling environment favorable for human existence. But on the other side of it, we create problem. When the health is said to be improved and mortality is reduced, eventually a population explosion may result. To natural habitats, the natural habitats are the major occupants of the life system, of the biotas. When this natural ecosystem is subject to frequent intervention by human activities through the culture of farming, industrialization, and other anthropogenic activities on the natural environment, this land, in the course of that, can be converted to other land uses, such as farmlands. In turn, the destruction of the natural habitats tends to eliminate the native wild species of plants, predatory animals, the parasites, the vertebrates and the invertebrates, and all whatnots. The outbreak of insect pests or disease vectors become more common. It is a common phenomenon in the tropical regions of the world, and particularly in Nigeria, where population grows astronomically. The pressure exerted by this increasing population is a cause of worry to many nations of the world, and particularly in Nigeria. And when it corresponds with the high level nutrient depletion from the ecosystem, we run into problems of reparation. We run into the problem of recovering from wastelands. Subsequently, farmers use pesticides to control the pests and protect their crops. They also, at the same time, pollute the environment. Care of the use of these pesticides. The development of this entire system in itself consumes irreplaceable fossil fuels, their supplies and distribution. When fuels are burned, air pollutants results. The air pollutants are generated in the reverse. On the whole, let us look at the major environmental problems that can be divided into the following categories. We can have 5 of them in the course of this discussion, just for knowledge development. The major environmental problems include overpopulation. Overpopulation, as we know, that is when the population, the number of people, outweighs the available resources of the environment. It is one major environmental problem. It is a global problem. It is not limited to one particular region. And what we should understand that because of the intricate relationship that humans have on the Earth's surface, because of our interaction at national level, international level, and local level, people are always related, care of through their socioeconomic activities, through their cultural activities, political activities, socioeconomic activities, and so on and so forth. It causes human suffering directly, and it amplifies all other environmental problems in the environment. Overpopulation is central. It is critical to societal development. It is critical to the general well-being of the people. And how to curtail this has been an issue of international interest. And that is why several conferences, workshops, seminars, and have been held globally at different fora to discuss ways on how these environmental problems can be solved. But can it really happen? When God has commanded humans to go into the world, marry and multiply, it is not always possible, because what God has instituted must come to pass. The increasing population of the world, or of people, is a necessity. The biblical injunction testify to that in the book of Exodus. I can't tell you the shatter now, that human beings must go into the world to marry and multiply. The most multiplicity of population could be a good omen for developing nations, but on the other side, it is injurious to the healthy development of our resources, because when we are overpopulated, we tend to exert pressure on the available resources, and the cost of doing that, law of diminishing returns set in. We destabilize the ecosystem, we disrupt the ecosystem, we eat up what the ecosystem has for us. Virtually all the ecosystem services that are necessary for human existence are obliterated. So that is one major problem. Let us recall the view of Adam Smith and Thomas Malthus in the 16th century, when they postulated on the danger associated with population increase. So though that time population was smaller than what we have today, there were yet many critics. But now these are happening in our time. And since this problem have not stopped, there is every need. We want every hand to be on deck to research, to find out ways, measures that have been taken by advanced nations of the world like America, Europe, Germany, and all the other Asiatic countries, on how they have been able to tackle the environmental problems. But what is surprising is that in spite of the instituted technologies, in spite of the expanding scientific discoveries and other measures to curb environmental problems, these problems are yet unsolved. Population continues to increase astronomically, and we must, at our own level, look for possible ways of addressing them. And I have mentioned that in the introduction to the lesson. That is about environmental protection. We must be able to protect the environment to avert destruction, to avert overuse of resources. We must be able to reserve the resources available for future generation, that people that are yet to be born, that is, if at all the world continues to exist, we must be able to conserve what we have at present. That is conservation strategy. We must be able to conserve them through various processes, and we must ensure sustainable resources management. Our management infrastructure should be put in place in such a way that environmental resources are not wasted. It should cycle economic security, the security of the resources, and economic sustainability. The next reason is pollution. Pollution is when unusual input into the environment has destroyed the ecosystem, or the vital resources of the ecosystem. It makes vital resources less useful and reduces the quality of life. Pollution is an evil in the society. It goes along with environmental development. As we tend to develop the environment through agriculture, through industry, and through humanly possible processes on the environment, we tend to pollute the environment. For example, when we go to mine minerals, when we mine materials of the earth, mineral resources of the earth, both solid and liquid or gaseous minerals of the earth, the exhaust from these minerals, like we have petrol, we use petrol to move vehicles from place to place. The burning of petrol can release carbon, which is one of the major or negative components of the ecosystem that affects global warming negatively. So pollution is considered as a negative environmental issue in this discussion. The third one is depletion of resources. Depletion of resources makes things that are important or vital to human existence more expensive, more difficult, or impossible to obtain. Depletion of the resources of the environment. This is linked to population increase and the quest for livelihood. People tend to use resources of the environment to ensure that they live well. They provide themselves with food, provide themselves with shelter, and the other necessities of life. So when there's no corresponding increase in the available resources with the human population increase and their demand, there's a tendency for a depletion of these resources from the ecosystem. And when these resources are depleted, then the population tends to suffer. The major victims are the humans. The animals suffer. The physical environment suffer from pollution and degradation. The soil degrades, plants degrade, or becomes unproductive or less productive. The global climate suffers. So in the current discussions on climatic change, the overuse of these natural resources or the misuse of these natural resources are a common factor. They tend to deplete the resources of the environment. The resources we are talking about, please let me highlight. These are both natural and human resources. The major physical resources, I think I have mentioned that, include the soil, the forest, the air, water, and minerals. You see, many of them are irreplaceable. Inadvertently, people tend to disrupt the ecosystem, deplete the resources of the earth, not knowing their value, their ecological value to humans. But efforts should be put in place in such a way that we manage the environment the way we feel the environment can sustain human existence. That is very, very important to us. Then we have global changes as another factor. Global changes is about change in climate, change in the weather, change in the rainfall regimes, change in temperature, and change in ecosystemic functions. The structure of the ecosystem and the dynamics of materials, gaseous, liquid, solid materials on the earth's surface changes, especially when human activities are tends to deplete these resources beyond their carrying capacity. This results from human activities in different ways and in different styles, and may permanently alter the earth in an unpredictable way. It can alter the earth or the structure of the earth or part of the earth in an unpredictable way. These are the problems we are facing now. Global changes, global temperature changes, a rise in temperature, global weather phenomena changes. You see, rainfall regime changes. If you are very conversant with what is happening today in our land, by the month of June, where we are supposed to be eating yam. I remember when I was very small, we used to eat yam anything June we start eating new yam. Maize, by April, maize already were done on the farm, were ripe for harvest on the farm. But the rapid deterioration of the environment occasioned by deforestation, and most recently, the most dangerous evil in the depletion process is the cattle rearing, overgrazing. They tend to overgraze without knowing the relevance of vegetation to global climatic system. You see, the more they deplete the vegetation, the vegetation and climate, they are closely related. There's a linkage. There's an increasing relationship between vegetation and climate. The more you deplete the vegetation from the earth's surface, you are tampering with the regime of rainfall. You see, because through evapotranspiration, vegetation supply the atmosphere with uh, with oxygen or with materials for further production of food onto the earth system. It has a role to play in photosynthesis. So when that rate of evapotranspiration is reduced due to the removal of vegetation from the surface of the earth, there is danger. Danger erupts. So these are some of the global changes we have on the ecosystem. Then global, we can link it to erosion, we can link it to flooding activities and spread of diseases. You see, because of the changes in the structure of the habitat, the architecture of most vital ecological resources are being altered due to this human intervention on the environment. There's the tendency for global changes to continue. But can this thing end? Can it end? It can't end. If you are vast with what is written in the Bible, in Matthew, that he will destroy heaven and earth, including all the elements that are contained inside it. So when God says he will destroy the heaven and earth, including all the elements we are talking about are all the physical, human, and material resources of the environment, including humans, will be destroyed. So what we are witnessing now is disease spread, war all over the country, disease spread, the so-called corona. The other time it was Ebola. Before that it was HIV/AIDS and bird flu and so on and so forth. Some have come and gone, some have gone and reduced, some are still at our doorsteps. These are some of the promises of God towards the earth. So we must be aware, we must be conscious of the environment. We must take care of the environment in such a way that we should not overuse or underuse and possibly mismanage the resources of the environment. Where one tree is removed, another should be replaced. As many trees you remove, replace them equally so that the world ecosystem will regain its natural strength of productivity. Then the fifth one is about war. War, we know war. A warring nation is a restless nation. In a situation of war, there are bound to be problems. There are bound to be upheavals. There are bound to be issues of insecurity. People running helter-skelter for their lives. So, and as they run away from the resources of the environment, where there is no peace, definitely there is no development. People run away. They begin to shy away from their basic needs because they are no more in their land. They have been displaced. So displacement is a result of war. And this war may be caused by, or may cause all other environmental problems, such as modern chemical or biological warfare. It threatens the survival of human race all over the world. We remember what happened in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, where nuclear bomb was tested by the Americans those days. You see, it distorted the ecosystem. Most vegetation in those regions were burnt away. I think even if there is a replacement, it should be of recent. After over 100 to 200 years, vegetation has not grown in a particular region because of the nuclear bomb. So this is a problem. And there are, in various parts of the world, there are regional wars. And that must be taken care of. So individuals act in ways that promote their own short-term welfare, which often conflicts directly with the long-term environmental interest of present and the future generation. So these are some of the problems we have with the ecosystem, and beyond this, there are many others that we cannot really handle. presently in the course of this lecture. But having gotten the background knowledge of what environmental problems are or environmental degradation are, we should be conversant and we should be conscious of the environment in such a way that we should be able to protect the environment from destruction. Yes, at present the world is very crowded. It is more polluted because of the increasing population and the quest for knowledge, the quest for livelihood. The world is equally less productive because it is less stable. The stability is not guaranteed. Ecologically, the vegetation and the ecosystem becomes fragile and vulnerable to disruption. Displacement of resources are on the increase. Serious stresses involving population, resources, and the environment are clearly a visible forces that affect the sustainability of our environment. Despite greater material, acquisition, the people of the world will be, as is predicted to be poorer in many ways than they are today. Many people are going to be poor. Poverty is on the increase. This is a socioeconomic factor that is linked to these environmental problems. Poverty is a global malaise. It affects nations of the world. It has no boundary. As it affects the advanced nations of the world, so it diffuses to the less advanced nations of the world. Significant losses of world forests is assumed to have continued, and it is continuing up to the next 20 years as demand for forest products and fuel wood increases. You see, as we want to have shelter, want to have houses to live in, or to want to have roads and electrical installations and other infrastructural facilities that will develop us, the demand for these forest products and fuel also increases. The world's forests are said to be currently disappearing at the rate of over 20 million hectares per year. That was the view of Santra 2010. The author maintained that the world's forests are currently disappearing at the rate of over 20 million hectares per year, with most of the loss occurring in the humid tropical forests of Africa, Asia, and South America. So if at this rate the world forest is disappearing at about 20 million hectares, what is the size of the earth? And what is the size of the forest? At what percentage can we put the size of the forest?